Look at that number. That's what Congress says it needs to spend this year. Give me a break. $3.8 trillion, twice what they spent just 10 years ago? President Obama talked about taking a scalpel to the budget. But we need something like this, something bigger. With all that overspending, maybe this would have... No, we need something even bigger than that. We need to make huge cuts. And later in the show, I'll cut the deficit down to surplus. But when I or others talk about making significant cuts, I hear scathing criticism like this.
Don't watch Stossel. He's nothing but a hack, a corporate shill. He wants to throw Granny over a cliff. This ad has been approved by the mainstream media.
Okay, my producer made that as a joke, but the point is serious. Anyone who proposes cuts to the budget is branded cruel. But one person says cutting that down isn't just economically smart, it's the moral thing to do. Arthur Brooks of the American Enterprise Institute says that. So what do you mean it's the moral thing to do?
Hi, John. Well, when the other side talks about doing the moral thing, they usually say that it's only fair for rich people to pay more, that it's only fair that we take from people who have more in society, then it's unfair to take to actually cut programs, especially if they would affect anybody who has less than average incomes. But
and I think
the truth of the matter is
that resonates with people, that there's a lot of money and redistribution is the moral thing to do.
Sure. And in truth, that sounds really good until you start thinking about what most Americans think fair is. Redistribution is not the definition of fairness to most Americans. Most Americans think that fairness has to do with keeping what you earn. Now, that doesn't mean you have to penalize poor people or, take money away from those who don't have enough. But it's certainly not fair to take more away from people just because we can, and especially when we're robbing our future because we have a spending disorder in our government. It's really immoral to be stealing from future generations and taking away their opportunity, their pursuit of happiness, if you will, simply because we can do that. I mean, the government today is treating the American citizens like ATM machines. Most Americans would say that's not fair, and fairness is a really moral thing.
You said in your op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, when you withdraw money from citizens against their will, you make them less free. What do you mean?
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, the state needs to function. We need to have taxes to pay for a government. We all know that. The question is, how much do we need for how much government that we actually want as a society? The government goes way beyond what we need to fix certain market failures, way beyond to creating a minimum basic safety net for the economically vulnerable. It has all kinds of middle class welfare that people think that sounds kind of like a good idea. Why not? A few bucks here, a few bucks there. But, that's really what Hayek was talking about, one of your great heroes I know, when he talked about the road to serfdom. This is what economists say, little abridgments to the freedom of the people. Pretty soon we have a different kind of society. We have a different sort of economy. We have something where we're less free. You work hard, they take it away.
It changes the culture when people become dependent. But I can see how people say, it's immoral to just take it from people. But people also say, what's moral about taking the money that government gives to poorer people and limiting that? A religious advisor to Obama says the debt debate is a clash between two competing moral visions, between those who believe in the common good versus those, that's him, I guess, and those who believe an individual good is the only way. The Bible says we should be wary of the rich and defend the poor.
Yeah, and I agree that it is definitely a clash of moral visions. One side says it's moral for the government to be bigger and taking more away because it can and redistributing wealth between people. The other moral vision says that people should be able to be free. Now, I like the founders of the United States and their concept of what a moral society was. If you go back to 1776, the Declaration of Independence originally was going to say that we have unalienable rights like life, liberty, and the possession of property. Well, Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin reconsidered that language and put in the pursuit of happiness, understanding that Possession of property is too materialistic. It's not moral enough for the freest nation on earth. The left, which talks about redistribution, basically says that if you want to stop cultural problems, you want to solve problems of poverty, you do it with a welfare check and you call it social justice. That's the most materialistic philosophy possible. It has nothing to do with individual opportunity.
Yeah, I love the phrase social justice that they argue. If I resist, does that mean I'm for social injustice? It's very hard to fight that. But I still don't quite get how I answer these people when they say you can't pursue happiness if you're horribly poor, if you're sick, and we need government to step in to help those people. We have to do more because there are still poor people. And that's the moral thing to do.
Look, and Hayek, once again, what we talked about a minute ago, but economists through the ages, including Adam Smith, knew that we need a safety net. We need a basic safety net from the government. Anybody who says get rid of all government programs and cut it down to zero is crazy. They're not paying attention to what we need. It goes beyond, however, help for the vulnerable. I want to help the vulnerable too, but I don't want middle-class welfare. I don't want forced sharing. I think that morality comes when people voluntarily, above the level of basic poverty, when people help each other voluntarily. And voluntary charity doesn't happen when the government is redistributing too much income. We know that from the social democracies of Western Europe. We know that from the former Soviet states. The United States is the most charitable country on the face of the earth, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that we believe that individuals need to make these choices. So we have to get away from this dichotomy, this idea that if you believe in limited government, if you believe the moral thing is rewarding merit and rewarding entrepreneurship, that you think it's unfair for the state to force people to pay more than the state needs to function, which is the current case, that you somehow hate the poor. No, I want to help the poor with a minimum basic standard of living, and beyond that, I want to create an opportunity society where everybody can rise. And that's actually, of course, why your ancestors came here, for that, not for forced income redistribution.
Thank you, Arthur Brooks. I would just also like to add the pure libertarian point that if you remove the government safety net, it's okay with me because I think a private safety net would come in and fill that and do it much better. But next, what if we do keep piling on the debt? Can't pay our bills. What happens? Well, that has already happened on a smaller scale here in America, and we'll show you where and what happened next.